Welcome to this week's episode of the Farmstead Revival. I'm Janelle Anderson, and I'm joined by my co-host, who happens to be my littlest sister, Trudi Skedsvold. We are so excited to talk this week. Well, okay, that's a lie. I was not so excited to talk about this week's topic. And I don't mean recently, but when my sister was talking about the different things that she wanted to talk about, this one was one she wanted to, and I was like, ugh. And I decided it's actually some really good content that we need to get through and talk about, and it is all about pigs. And
about pigs.
If you're listening to this, you can't see her, but if you go over on YouTube, you can see that she wore her pig t-shirt today that has pigs all over it. We are going to talk about pigs because this is something that people bring home to the farm and the homestead, are an animal that people quite often bring to the home.
I bring them into my home. Multiple times.
I'm pretty sure that we've seen pigs in homes oh gosh. Quite often people bring pigs to the farm, to the homestead. And so we do have to delve into this topic. And Trudi is so excited to talk about this because she has raised a lot of pigs. Just before we get into what she's going to share, I just want to share a little bit of both of our backgrounds. We had pigs growing up all the time. Our dad raise them. Maybe we did because we had to do the chores.
To take care of them. Yeah.
But with that, they were always around. And one of the things that Ben and I had our biggest, not disagreement, because we don't really argue or fight, but we were not on the same page of, I wanted to bring pigs to the homestead here and he did not want to. And the reason is how he saw pigs being raised in the past when he was growing up. And that is, they stay in one pen, one paddock, and that's all that they do. And I told him that is not how we are going to raise them. We're going to raise them differently. And we'll talk into that later in this episode. And that was what convinced him that we could bring pigs home to the farm here in Tennessee. And it was a big moment and a big change for us. So our first year that we raised pigs, we raised 7 pigs total. We butchered 2 here on the farm and we invited people to come in. We brought someone in who could teach people how to process it from start to finish. And it was a good workshop that we hosted here. And the rest went to a processor and we sold them all to our community and they supported us that way. All right. So pigs, we're going to talk about it because they are a great source of protein and they can do a lot for your farm besides just feeding you at the end of it. Trudi, do you want to share a bit?
Hold on. I want to share back about our pigs when growing up. That is one of the reasons why I never really wanted pigs, because all I knew of pigs was if they're a boar, they're mean. If they're pigs in a pen, you want to watch out because they might eat your baby goat. That happened one time.
That did totally happen. One of our pigs ate.
And when they would get out, they would go down the road, they would be eating on dead deer carcasses. So that was growing up and
it smelled.
It was
a pigsty, but we're going to talk a little bit more into that. With that whole thing, it made us realize that we would raise pigs differently probably in the future. I never thought I'd raise pigs, to be honest. But it made us think that we would do things differently in the future if we ever did. So when you and Eric got started with pigs...
And Dad got us started on pigs. Yeah, so it was... Dad's always the start of everything. I just want everybody to know that he is he was the start of everything and just kind of moved us to where we needed to be. He just kind of threw ideas at us. So one time he was like, hey, this guy's got these pigs for sale. Why don't you guys get some pigs? And me and Eric were like, I guess we could feed out some pigs and, have some for ourselves. So he went with us to go get these pigs. We brought home Bob was the boar. Charlotte, she was a pink Hampshire is what she was.
I remember Charlotte.
And then we had Betty. And so we brought those ones home and we started just from scratch, kind of figuring out how to take care of pigs. And it was really trial by fire. That is what we do. It's not a good idea.
We've talked about this in the past.
That is how we do things. And so we learned a lot from those first bunch of pigs. We went from 3 pigs, and like I said before, we went to 83 butcher pigs. We furrowed out pigs. We were doing all of the things, and then we expanded and got more pigs. I think we had 6 sows or 5 sows at one time. It started with 3, and then we had so many. I had multiple piglets that I had to bring in the house and take care of. I ended up having...
Oh my goodness. If you would go to Trudi's house, you never knew what animal you were going to find in the house.
Yeah.
And not all the time, but there was definitely little baby pigs that she was taking care of and feeding on the bottle and all of the things. How many of those piglets that you brought into the house? I mean, this is off the cuff, so you're probably not maybe going to remember, but how many actually made it?
So I would have had a better success rate. I think I brought home probably, I would say 5 piglets in total that I had to try to save. Out of all of the piglets, I think only one officially made it all the way to adulthood. And the only reason why he made it to adulthood was I was very careful with him. And he actually turned out to be our boar. Our final boar in North Dakota was Pork Chop. And he was like a dog. He came up on our porch when he was a piglet. And then one day he went and got educated. He just disappeared. He figured out the barn was up on the hill where there was female pigs, and he did not come back home because he found out that there is girls up there. So he went and got educated and didn't come back. But I remember we did have one piglet. His name was, oh my gosh, what was his name? Bacon. We named him Bacon. We weren't going to eat him either. He was just going to be a backup boar. But what ended up happening to him, I put all that time and effort into raising him, and I brought him back from death's bed. And
she means death's door.
Whatever. Death's bed. Death bed, death's door. What's the difference?
Continue. I'm sorry.
Anyways, I brought him back and brought him up to the barn and was going to put him in with the rest of the pigs and put him in with the rest of the pigs that were his same age, same size. I came back the next day and they were running around with his skin. Because here's another thing is we learn so much from what not to do. We have talked about this before. You learn from what you've done wrong. And so we have learned that when you take a pig out of a situation where they're around all these other pigs, if it's a week to a month, it doesn't matter. Those pigs, for some reason, they just feel like that's an outsider as soon as you put it back in, and they will run that pig. They will run that pig. They will bite that pig. They will run it until it just can't run anymore, and it's pretty much just dies. And so you have to be very careful when you have that happen. You don't want to just automatically throw them back in there. I suggest putting them in a pen.
I was going to say, what would you say that they should do?
Because Janelle had asked me this question when she got her pigs or whatever, because she had some that were smaller than the other ones, and I had...
Hold on. Mm-hmm. What's up, buddy? Yeah, I did ask you for some advice because we had some piglets that we had bought, some feeder piglets. Mm-hmm. And then we had someone else that had been working with a coworker, and he had told us he has some pigs, and he asked if we would want them for free. And we're like, of course we want them for free. We can feed them out. It's fine. And we weren't sure what to do to bring them in. And so of course I asked my sister, who has raised a zillion pigs, what we should do. And so what she suggested is that we don't put them in with each other, but they were next to each other. They shared a hog panel between them with electric wire because we were training them to electric fence. Mm-hmm. And they were able to get used to each other and all of that kind of stuff because they were different sizes, and that worked out fantastically. There was no issues. Obviously the bigger pigs were the bosses and they pushed the little ones around, but it worked out amazing.
Yeah, so that is my suggestion if you ever have a pig that's coming into another group of pigs, or pigs going into another group of pigs, is let them be next to each other, let them get used to it. It's kind of like any other animals. You don't just go and throw a horse out in a field with a whole group of horses. Otherwise, it's going to get ran and it's going to get beat up. So we learned that, and obviously it's just sometimes you make mistakes, and that's okay because... in the long run, you learn. Absolutely.
Yeah. We always talk about it, and I know that everybody does, but like failure to me is not when you make a mistake. Failure to me is if you don't learn from that mistake. Mm-hmm. And so don't do the same thing. Like if you can learn something from something that happened that's not great, if you can learn from it, that's not failure. Failure is when you decide that you're not going to learn anything from it and you're going to continue doing the same thing. That's also the definition of insanity.
Absolutely. We don't want to be insane.
I mean,
we're already barely holding it together.
I was gonna say, our family is quite insane to begin with, so we toe the line pretty closely. No. All right. So what is the next thing that you want to talk to people about pigs?
So I was just going to go into breeds of pigs, like my favorite breeds of pigs.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And let's go into pig breeds. You talk about the favorite ones. If I know anything about them, I'll throw some stuff in, but chances are I'll just sit here and drink my coffee.
So I'm sure that a lot of people will have different ideas of what their favorite pig breeds are or have, different opinions. I am not an expert on pigs by any means. This is not an expert, okay? So all this is just my information of what I've learned and how I feel about it. Take it with a grain of salt, totally up to you. I am very partial to Berkshire pigs, and I think it's just because they provide a lot, they check a lot of my boxes. So I mean, they're pretty calm pigs for the most part. I have our first pig that was a full Berkshire, her name was Suey. She was just the sweetest pig ever. And I mean, even when she had problems furrowing, I was able to, she stood there while I stuck my hand up in there trying to loosen the piglets and trying to get them loose. Unfortunately, I couldn't get them because her pelvis was too small and the piglets were too big. So she ended up having a C-section. We had to take her to the vet and have a C-section. They told us she would never have piglets again. And she did. She had, but the next time she only had 2 piglets, but they were the fattest, healthiest little piglets you ever seen. So when someone tells you something, it may not always be true. We never know. Okay. But yeah, she ended up, sadly though, her end of her life was she ended up getting struck by lightning on the hill with 2 other pigs.
You know, here's the deal, guys. If you want to know like the wide gamut of ways that your animals can die, listen to this podcast because there is some things that just stink. I mean,
what are the chances? 3 pigs laying in a little pile and they just get struck by lightning. Anyways, but so she was a very docile pig, and the rest of the Berkshires that we have had have also been docile and just nice pigs. The other thing that they have is they have a nice big old bud on them, which is nice for your hands, and they also have nice long bodies. So their long bodies give us that long belly, so then we get the nice long bacon and all of the loins and stuff like that. So they're just nice thick pigs, and that's what's really nice about them. Now, not only can they be raised on grain and all of the things, but they also are really good for, pasture grazing or forest grazing. So right now we have that Berkshire out there, Sir Mix-a-Lot. You saw me riding him in that picture. He is our boar, and then we have our Duroc cross. She's Duroc Hampshire cross with him out there. And so they are digging up all the roots and all of the things and preparing that for us to go ahead and just maybe turn into some pasture in there or whatever we want to do with that. So they've just been rooting around, digging it up. So those Berkshires are awesome for all of those things. And they're particularly pretty healthy. Like, I'm not going to say that we've ever had huge problems with him, but I'm just going to say that he's been healthy a lot of the time.
So how old is Sir Mix-a-Lot? Just so I can get an understanding. Do you know?
He is, I was just trying to figure this out the other day. I think he's 4 or 5. 4?
And he traveled across the country.
Yes, so Correct. They came from North Dakota with us. The 2 pigs, they came from North Dakota with us. We got rid of the rest of our pigs. And Eric told me I was crazy for bringing my pigs with me, but one thing I will say is to have a boar that you trust. I don't 100% trust him because he is a boar and they have all of that testosterone going through them. Like, I don't trust him 100%, but for me to be able to be around him and handle him and not have to worry that he's going to bite me all of the time.
As well as your kids also.
Exactly.
Right?
Like,
That's really important. Temperament, it doesn't matter what livestock you are bringing onto your farm or your homestead. Temperament is top of the list, and it always should be. And so that's like super, super important. We'll just drive that home. So tell me about lard on the Berkshire breed. Is there a decent amount of lard, or are they more of a lean pig, you said?
So Berkshires are more of a lean pig. Obviously, you can get that fat on there if you were to feed them more fatty things. Obviously, corn's going to give them a little bit more fat.
Corn is not fatty, but you mean things that put on fat.
Fat. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes. So they're more of the leaner pig. They have nice marbling in their meat, and it's just more of a darker meat.
I was going to say, is it a darker meat? Is it lighter meat? What are you looking at? Okay.
Okay, so moving on, and unfortunately though, I will say that Berkshires are normally a little bit longer to feed out. Sometimes it's more like around 8 months is a Berkshire in all reality to get that to...
I feel like that's fairly normal though. What do you know? Like
okay, let's be honest. What do you think? Okay, so when you think of like a basic pig breed, like a commercial breed pig, them getting fed out is a lot shorter time frame. So like I'm saying, it's going to take longer than that. So can you tell me, and we didn't talk about this, so I might be putting you on the spot, and if you don't know it, it's fine, but what weight are you usually going for when you are wanting them to be processed? So here's, I'll preference. So some people want
preface. You'll preface.
No, your preference.
Oh, I thought you said I'm going to preface.
No, Janelle. I don't use fancy words.
Okay.
It's not me.
I just want you to know that I am not editing any of this out because this is hilarious. Okay, keep going.
Preference of yourself.
Yeah.
So like, let's say that you're processing this pig yourself. Obviously, you're going to have to lift this pig. You're going to have to pick it up. So are you going to want a 400-pound pig that you're going to have to, butcher yourself and have to cut up and stuff and lift? If you don't have those, like you don't have a tractor, all of those things kind of factor into it. If you're butchering it yourself, obviously that 250-pound mark is probably where you should stay close to, because it's going to be a lot more manageable, not as hard to butcher and take care of. If you're going to take it to the butcher shop, I would say 300 pounds probably would be a good mark if you wanted a little bit more on it.
Because the reason is that you don't want them to get so big, minus what you just said, is eventually they're not putting on meat per se. Mm-hmm. The pendulum swings over to the fat.
And
some point.
I am not a fat kind of animal person. Like, I do not like fat. When I'm eating meat, I don't want a big chunk of fat on my meat. I cut all that fat off. I think it's disgusting to me. So that is something I don't want. So our pigs, I would say if we're taking them to the butcher shop, 300 pounds is where we want them to be.
Yeah. Would you say that there's any negatives to the Berkshire breed? You talked about that maybe they're not going to feed out as fast as like maybe ones that are being commercially raised. Are there any negatives that you see? I mean, they don't have as much lard usually, right. So that can be a negative.
Right.
It's okay if not.
I don't really have a negative.
It's your favorite breed, so you're probably not going to find too much negative about them.
It might be the hill that I die on is the Berkshire, and like I said, I know a lot of people do not like them. So, but we'll move on to the Duroc now. So the Duroc, obviously, I'm sure a lot more people have heard of Durocs than
I think we
Berkshires.
Are actually going to be raising Durocs this year. Those are the feeder piglets that we're going to get.
I do like a Duroc. They also have those big, nice butts, which where the ham is, and they do have those longer backs for the most part. So that they're kind of just like the Berkshire. Like, it's a good mix. And honestly, my favorite mix is to mix them together. So I know that our sow right now, she's actually a Duroc Hampshire cross. So she's got a little bit of that Hampshire in her, but her babies generally take after that Duroc. And then when you mix them with the Berkshire, they just fill out so nice.
Do you think it has a nice balance? That cross has a nice balance of the lard versus the meat. Like, it's a good balance. So, because I know for a lot of like myself personally, like we need lard and we can up, we process and can up a lot of lard because we use it in baking, we use it in frying, we use it all over the place. And so like, that's something that's important to me.
So they also say that Durocs are a leaner pig as well. Okay. I mean, they're not going to be as lean and probably as the Berkshire, but they're a leaner pig as well. So I would say they complement each other. Now, if you wanted to add something that has more fat, obviously...
Like maybe we're getting out of the realm of breeds that but like maybe a Mangalese. You know what? On my phone, I have it. Mangalese, whatever they are.
Mangalese.
If we wanted to feed them out or get a couple different breeds in there so that we could have a good mix of fat, lard versus meat, what would it be? You and I made a list and you shared different things with me. So go ahead.
I don't even remember this, but okay. I can't remember what happened yesterday, so good for you that you remembered that. So, like I didn't say about the Berkshires, is they're a heritage breed, and so also the Durocs are also a heritage breed. They say that they are quick growth, and I would say they can be a little bit quicker than that Berkshire to feed out. I will say that there was a lady back in North Dakota that raised Berkshires, and she's the one that we actually got the boar from. We just called her the pig lady.
You're welcome.
Anyways, but she said that she could feed out her feeder Berkshires at 6 months. She'd have them fed out. She had it down to a science where she could feed them out at 6 months. So it is doable. You just have to know how to do it.
Yeah. And if anybody has questions on nutrition for any livestock, this is me putting in a plug. I am going to put in a plug. My husband is obsessed with animal nutrition across the board. It doesn't matter if it's cows, pigs, chickens, like he's obsessed. And so if you ever have questions on our website, which is thehavenfarmstead.com, you can book a call with us to go over any livestock questions, but nutrition can be a big part of that. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Go ahead.
No, Ben's very knowledgeable. I think that's a great thing. Yeah, you're welcome. Didn't even try to, but you're welcome.
I just took it.
Anyways, but yeah, the Durocs are very similar to the Berkshire in most aspects of things. But now we're going to go into something that's wouldn't be my normal. I have never raised them.
Okay, so here before you say it, I found this list that you and I compiled because we were talking about pigs.
Oh, God.
3 years ago. You said for lean pigs for bacon and pork loin to get a decent amount, and then you also added in the ham and the Boston butt. I'm going to assume can come from, I don't know enough about pigs, just so you know. You said the Berkshire, a Tamworth, and a Duroc. And you also said that the Duroc was more middle of the road for meat and fat. And so that's might be why you really like the combination of the Berkshire and the Duroc.
So those Tamworths, we did have Tamworths at one time. I will say that I did not enjoy having them. They're more of, I'm sure that there is some calm ones in there, but the ones that we had were not calm. They were they were instinctual. Like they were very on their instincts, like almost like a feral pig, I guess you would kind of say of what they look like. Also, their noses are longer. They kind of look like that feral pig a little bit. They weren't for me.
They weren't your favorite. Okay, so then getting into the list of lard pigs, because you did say that a little bit, the coons, which we're going to talk about, just so everybody knows, the Hampshires, the Yorkshires, and the American Guineas were a few. And then they also have the Idaho pasture pigs that I know friends that raise. But let's talk about the coons, because that is actually a breed that is very popular on homesteads because of their smallness. Easier to manage that way. Anything that I've ever seen from anybody who's raised them is they're incredibly docile, which is super important. And you get a lot of lard. So what do you got to share about the coons?
I was just going to say my experience with them was, yet again, my dad. He said, I'm going to go pick up these 2 pigs, or 3 pigs, I think it was. And he went and picked them up. And I was like, what the heck are those? Because they were so small. They were not the average pig that Dad would bring home. And so I was just like, okay, Dad, you're going to eat those? Those remind me of a potbelly pig. Like, I don't understand what you're going to get off of them. And so he fed them out, and
He fed them out for a very long time because
he did.
I actually didn't know the breed until Trudi and I were just discussing this before we started today, and she told me that they were coons. And I said, I just remember sitting there watching them and like they didn't grow. Like they were like the same size. But by the time that Javin, I think it was Javin, right? That ended up processing them because Dad passed away. How old do you even know? Because I feel like they were fairly old when they came. But I don't know
how old they were.
Javin processed them, or at least the first one, because I know that he did like 1 or 2 and then waited on the last 1 or 2. Do you remember what they looked like when he processed them? Were you there?
No, I wasn't. Okay.
So my experience was with a friend's coon that we helped. Like we were just there. We weren't helping in like a capacity of we know what we're doing, but we were just like labor for them to help. And there was so much fat, so much lard on it, which is great. Like all that lard, I was like stars in my eyes thinking of all of the things that they could use it for. But I think what really like shocked me, because we were actually looking at wanting to get some coons, was the amount of meat on there wasn't very much. And for me and what our needs are on our farm,
right,
they just did not fit what we needed. But they do fit other people's models because other people love them. Again, they're docile and all of the things that they're just really easy to raise. They're not super hard on your pastures and stuff like that. And so people do love these pigs. And so we're not going to be negative about them, but just know that they are a heavily lardy pig. So if you want lots of fat, there you go.
They actually say though that meat is sweet is what I had kind of researched and looked up. They said that it's sweet and flavorful, but then also fatty. So for me, that's a no.
Which is fine. Yeah. Again, preference, right?
And like Janelle said, they take longer. Because like I said, I didn't really know too much about them because I didn't personally raise them, but I know that a lot of people like them. They said 12 to 14 months, but you're saying that it's like more closer to 2 years.
I have seen where it's suggested that closer to 2 years. But again, like that's your preference. At what point are you going to not want to keep them around any longer? So
right.
I think that probably that range is because people do it at different times because that's what they want.
Yeah. So now that we've gone through the pigs, I mean, there's so many more pigs out there.
For sure.
Breeds that are just, they would be perfect for a lot of people's where they're at, location, or what they're wanting from them. There's so many pigs. Like, all I can say is do your research of what you want and what would work out for your place. Because if you don't do your research, you're going to end up with something that maybe you don't per se want. And yes, like, we can learn from it. But why waste your time if you can kind of narrow down what you need and what you want?
Yeah, and I'm also just going to throw out, because in all things, I'm not so much breed specific, but if you know like the baseline of what each breed can bring to the table, maybe a cross is a better option for you. So don't like, we actually, 3 of the pigs that we raised, and we actually raised 8 pigs. One we used in like we had a family or a friend gathering, and we roasted this pig. So I forgot that we started with 8, but the first 3 that we got from that friend of Ben's was a mulefoot. And I had maybe heard of them, but didn't know anything about them. And they were really excellent. I enjoyed the meat. We made so much sausage off of the last 2 that we processed here. And it was really, really good. And they're fat. I would have liked to see a little more fat, but I think we just needed to give them a little bit more time to put on that fat, and they would have had more. So just saying, like, don't get so stuck on like, everybody's doing this breed, this breed, this breed. I think we all do that. It's like such a big thing that I talk against. But like, try some different things and bring them home and see if you like it. See what it turns out to be and all of that kind of stuff.
Agreed. Just something I was going to touch base on was furrowing. So when furrowing is them giving birth, so the sows are giving birth, that is what furrowing is called. So what we finally figured out what worked for us is we had to have a place for those piglets to get away from their mothers, because what would happen is those moms, they don't intentionally lay on their babies or step on their babies, but it is going to happen. Now, am I saying that you should have them in a furrowing crate and pin them down and all of the things? I mean, maybe if they're a really, really bad mom, just for those first week so that everybody makes it and is healthy and big, absolutely give those piglets a chance. But if that's not something that you can do, give those piglets an availability to get away from their mom, to be able to step out from their mom.
So like when she gets up, their heat is gone. And so they will go seek out another heat source to stay warm while she's eating or whatever she's doing. Maybe she went and peed and pooped in her corner, because pigs do that. They like to have a bathroom. Just they're very clean. No, they can be very clean. If you give them the ability to do that.
They will have a poop. They will have a poop corner. So, but yes, like Janelle said, they those piglets are looking for that warmth. And so what we would set up in the pens is we would have a bar that would come out from the pen on the side, so that it was a buffer by the fence. It was a buffer to the fence from the mom. The bar would jut out and keep the mom from smushing those piglets. It also, we would have an area right on the outside of the pen where they could come out to. And right at first, we did heat lamps from the top. I do not like heat lamps.
Heat lamps are dangerous. There's just no way around it.
We used them in the beginning, and I told Eric I did not like that. And one time we did have where it did catch fire on the barn a little bit, and so we caught it in time where it didn't start a huge fire. But
praise God.
They actually have these heating pads, and you can plug them in, and they go right underneath whatever the piglets are laying on top of, and it keeps those piglets warm, so you don't have to have that heat lamp. And I would suggest those 100% if you're going to have piglets in the colder weather, or just cold in general, so that it keeps them warm. If you don't have that either, what you could also do is just give them an area with a lot of straw and like a cover. We'll say maybe take a barrel, cut off the end, put the straw in there, and just have those piglets so they can pile up in there and just stay warm. Just somewhere for them to get away from their mom and stay warm is a big deal.
The issue is when she comes to lay back down.
Right.
She will lay on them.
And especially newer mothers don't know what they're doing. They don't understand. So that's where you lose a lot of your piglets, is they lay down and those piglets don't get out of the way. And they're big most pigs are pretty big, and she can't keep track of all 12 piglets. I mean, that's a lot of babies.
Yeah.
I can barely keep track of my 3 kids. I couldn't imagine 12 little screaming children with teeth.
You're giving yourself too much credit. You could barely keep track of one of your kids.
Oh my gosh.
I'm kidding.
They're all out of control. But anyways.
We don't just raise feral animals. We raise feral children.
Feral children. Cool. That's the best thing in the world.
That's how we were raised.
But also when they're into that furrowing, you have to just kind of keep an eye on them while they're in the process of getting those piglets out, because sometimes piglets get stuck and you have to be able to identify if that's happening. Personally, if you can't get in there and help her out in any way, if you can't get hands on her.
Why can't you get hands on her? Because of her temperament? Is that what you're alluding to?
So sometimes there's moms that will let you get in there with her piglets, or let you put your hands on her. There's other times where we've had where there is moms that are just all wound up. But besides that, you don't really want to get them all wound up and freaked out while they're trying to give birth to these babies. You want to let them be as natural as possible, because the more you stick your hands on them, the more you poke and prod, something is going to happen. Just pretty much hands off. But if you do have to get in there and you can get in there and help them in any way, then go for it. But otherwise, just stand back. And like I said, if it's something that you can't take care of yourself, then you're obviously going to have to call in a vet or help from another person that has had, hands, I wouldn't say hands-on. Experience yeah. with furrowing and taking care of those things. So another thing about furrowing is when those piglets are born, most piglets, I won't say most piglets, but a lot of the piglets are raised on cement, right? They're not raised on dirt. I believe that they are healthier raised on dirt than they are on cement. And when they're raised on cement, when they come out, you have to give them their iron shot, because they don't have that dirt that they're getting in their noses. They're not eating the dirt. That's where they get that iron from, is from the dirt. I mean, if you don't raise them on the dirt, then you're going to have to give them that iron shot. And most people cut their eye teeth and all of the things. We didn't do that per se. We left them all natural. It did not hinder them eating. They did not hurt each other. All of the things. We don't dock the tails. We leave them natural. We've never had eat any tails off. Obviously, if it happens, then you're going to have to cater to what happens.
Stranger things have happened. Like, these are not absolutes.
No, but in our experience, we didn't have to do those things. But like I said, they are healthier on dirt, just like children are healthier eating dirt than being in a bubble. Makes that's just a
lot of sense to me. So with farrowing, I just want to make it clear that is not for everybody, and that is not something that you have to do. No. Because most of the time you can find feeder piglets.
Absolutely.
To bring home and feed out that way. I think farrowing takes more skills to deal with that. And so I just want to say, I just want to take off the burden. You don't have to do that. We're not going to do that. Not because I don't think that we can't handle it, but because I just don't have a desire to. That's not like my
And then you also end up with runt piglets. The hard reality of runt piglets is...
We've all watched Charlotte's Web.
Well, okay, but 40% of the time, 40% of the time, and I actually think that's being generous, giving them extra, they would not they would survive, whatever.
They would not survive. Or they would survive.
They would survive. 40% chance.
Yeah.
Very small. Because the reason why their mom didn't want them or ignored them and kind of pushed them off to the side, she already knows something's wrong with them internally or just mentally. Something is wrong with them. The animals are going to tell you. We've had mama pigs eat babies. When they eat a baby, they know something's definitely wrong with them. They're going to just get rid of it. That's the humane thing of life.
On kind of the same topic.
I'm not saying she's just going around eating all of her babies, because then obviously you got a bigger problem.
That's what I was going to say. Like, on the flip side of that, there are some moms who are just really bad moms, and they will eat their whole litter. So they'll kill them.
That's a big difference.
Not what she's talking about.
No, one baby out of the mix all of a sudden is missing. Obviously something was wrong, and she just ended up getting rid of it. But that's why sometimes those runts just don't have a chance, aren't going to go, I'm all for the underdog, try to save the baby runt, but...
She very much is.
It hurts my heart, because, you can't. You just can't sometimes, and it is what it is.
But you try, don't you?
Every single dang time.
Yep. She's a bleeding heart, y'all.
It's bad. But yes. So, and if you don't want to furrow, like Janelle said, you can go ahead and just buy some piglets from somewhere. I will say that they're not going to be cheap. I would say that $50 to $100 a piglet.
Oh no, you're very, very much mistaken on my area.
Really?
Yes, it's 150 plus.
Really? So yes. I will say 50 is really low for here. It's $100 a piglet for here. And that's not even registered piglets. Like, that's just piglets in general. So if you're going to go and do that, you're going to have to make sure that you got your outline of your cost and what it's going to cost to feed them out, and just make sure that it makes sense for you. Because if it doesn't make sense, then don't do it. You could just buy a butcher pig from your neighbor and you might save yourself quite a bit of money. Let's talk about a little bit about feeding. So back in North Dakota, what we fed was wheat screenings. And so we got a really good deal on wheat screenings. And we also had, I think it was peas. I
was going to say, you had to have some sort of protein in there. So you probably had peas.
We had a outsource on peas as well. And then we would mix what was it called? It's a mineral
package, something.
Yep. We would mix that in the grinder mixer and mix it all together and then put it in a big feeder, and they would just sit and feed, and we just fill that. Make sure they had clean water. Obviously, that's a big deal.
That is a huge deal for pigs.
I know pigs are dirty. Okay.
Well, we think they're dirty.
Doesn't mean that they need to drink dirty water. You want clean water. All animals need clean water. Now going from North Dakota, where we had all that access to that feed, coming to North Carolina is a lot different. So
it is so different for all animals.
Access to feed now is very hard to come by. We have had to just kind of figure out what we can do, and it's been a little hard finding what is easy. It was nice of the farmer down the road. He let us clean out a rye bin for him, and so we got some rye from him for the pigs. He had sold us some corn. I don't like to personally feed out corn. Not a big fan of feeding out corn. So that was kind of a struggle for me, but that was the only option that we could do that was...
And this
makes sense.
This is what brings up a really good point, is that depending on the area that you live in, you might struggle to find feed per se that you want to feed your pigs. And so you have to be willing to bend in what makes sense for you, for your money, like how much you can invest in this pig, but also what you can get without having like crazy amounts of time to go get it. So like, think about all of that before you get into pigs. Where are you going to source your feed from? What does it look like to you? And Trudi talked about it in the last little section, is that you have to remember that this is going to cost you something. It's going to cost you to get the feeder pigs. It's going to cost you to get their feed, to move them. I hope you're going to move them. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And it does cost you. So pay attention and have a plan in place before you're just going to bring them home and start feeding these pigs out.
Another awesome thing that kind of popped up, our uncle actually makes vodka. He has a distillery. I know. Awesome things. Uncle Chris makes vodka. He has a distillery in the town just down the way. So he has those distiller grains. And I know that they are controversial in some sort of a way, but we are able to give those to our butcher pigs right now, and they enjoy the crap out of them. So if they're happy eating those on top of all of the things that we also give them, then it's a great source for us. But like I said, sometimes you just have to
be okay with it.
You just got to go with what you got.
So we mentioned this in a previous podcast, but some other things that you can do is obviously you can feed them your table scraps. You can feed them what comes out of your kitchen. We fermented our feed with milk overnight was all that we did. We did a 24-hour ferment. Like, we would feed our pigs, put it in the buckets for the next day, and put our milk on top, our skimmed milk on top of it. And so you have so many different options. You can feed them the whey if you're making cheese or yogurt or anything like that. Those are great things to put in there. But to think beyond it, you can go to the grocery store, like Trudi talked about in our previous episodes, and go get all the fruits and vegetables. And if you want to, you can go beyond that. But like that's a great place to start with your local grocery store and see if they're willing, because they're throwing that stuff out anyway.
Sometimes they will be willing, sometimes they will.
Sometimes corporate won't let them.
Yes, corporate can be a hard thing to get around.
Because why would you want to take that and utilize it for feeding stuff out? Because whatever.
That would be too good.
Instead, just let it go to the landfill.
Absolutely. Anyways, but so pigs. I mean, they're a good asset to your place. They have a lot to give, but it's also a lot more responsibility to take on and figure out. So if you are thinking about getting pigs on the place, do your research. Don't be a Trudi and an Eric and just hope things work out, because sometimes it's not going to. One thing I will say is make sure that you have good place to keep them, where they're going to stick, because we've had, obviously, over the years of pigs are really good at escaping. They can dig, they can push, they're very strong with those noses. They are capable of figuring out how to get out. I've seen pigs climb stuff. So, I mean, they're like Houdini.
And they can jump.
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh, that's so funny you say that. Hold on. So when we first got those first pigs, we were so proud of ourselves. We got these metal things from the oil field. I don't even remember what they were. They were probably like knee high, maybe a little bit more than knee high. And we built them these little pens, right?
And for knee high for us is like 3 feet.
Okay, so
just so y'all know, we're really tall. Maybe 4. No, just kidding.
We were so excited. We were like, oh yeah, we got all our pens built, blah, 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 blah. We didn't know that pigs jumped. How would I know that pigs jumped? It was our first, like, pigs experience. We put the pigs in, and Charlotte looks directly at me, and she just jumps out. And I was like, duly noted, pigs can jump, Eric. Now we know pigs can jump. We have to build higher.
Not high enough. Oh, gosh. That is so funny. Oh, my goodness. So one thing that we did, like I already talked about how we trained our pigs to electric fence. We actually ran our pigs on the edge of our trees. So in our trees, but on the edge. And here's why it was so cool to do that. They cleared the brush, the underbrush that was in there. And we utilized them for that. It was like the best thing ever that we could have done, because in the future, our cows were able to go and get shade in those spots because the pigs rooted it up and got rid of all of that crap. And so, I say crap, I'm sorry, but I don't care. This year, I'm so excited because we are actually going to go further into our trees with our pigs. I'm actually, in the next couple of weeks, going to go with Hoyt, and we're going to go get it figured out of where our first pen's going to be for our pigs that are going in the forest. We are raising them in the forest, and it's like going to be the best thing. So pigs clear things.
Yes.
Pigs also root up stuff, which is a good thing if you can control it. If you have an area that you want rooted up, maybe it's your future garden, put up some hog panels or even electric if they are trained to electric. Right. And then get them in that space. They'll root it up for you. Maybe you have an area that you're planning on reseeding for something. Get them out there, move them around, keep them moving so they're not making like huge holes and stuff like that and really destroying the land. And just utilize their pigginess of what they like to do, which is root and wallow and all of that kind of stuff. Just so you guys know, when we move them into the forest, they will only be on one electric wire strand. That is how we are doing it. And it worked before. We're going to work it again. I know many people who make it work as long as they're trained to the electric. Yep.
Our pigs know when the fence is off.
Oh my gosh. They sense it. Their snouts are just absolutely amazing. And they don't even have to touch it to know if it's on or off.
I had, it got shorted out or it was just off. I don't remember. The solar panel, I think, stopped working. And I had both pigs at my front porch greeting me as I came off the porch. So make sure that they know who feeds them, because that's where they're going to go.
Absolutely. I want you, as we wrap the piggy topic up, can you give like your best piece of advice? The one thing that you want people to know. I'm sure you've already said it, but if it's a recap, it's fine.
Best piece of advice, prepare. Pigs are a big responsibility. You don't want them getting out. We have had circumstances where they have gotten out and it's not a good thing. Not only do you put your pigs in danger, but you put other people and whatnot in danger, because are they going on other people's property, destroying it? Are they getting out on the road? I mean, we've had that happen before. You need to make sure that you have checked off all your boxes and made sure that you are prepared for them. Because if you are not, you are going to have a hard time. It's going to be a real harsh reality. And you don't want to invest all this money into these animals and then have it all just go out the door.
Yeah, I love that. That is such good advice. I really like that advice. I think it's good. I think across the table, I think that's good advice. So I'm just going to add in that if you have never had pigs before, part of that preparation is finding people that can help you with that journey. So I always
ask questions.
Yes, I always talk about finding mentors in whatever area it is that you are trying to do, whether it's your garden, whether it's family milk cows, whether it's pigs. Find someone who knows what they're talking about and make sure that they are willing to help you mentor you through that process. Most people are happy to do that because they want you to succeed and they care enough about the animals and they want them to be thriving and healthy. Yes, absolutely. We are to the point of our podcast where Trudi and I ask each other questions. We don't give any hints to what it is. This is off the cuff, and it's always a little funny because sometimes it's like we can snap with responses and sometimes it's really bad. Like one time it took me like 8 minutes and I had to edit it all out because I could not think.
It was so bad. So bad. Are you asking first or you want me to ask first?
You go first.
Okay. Are you a cat or a dog person and why?
Oh gosh, I am definitely a dog person, not a cat person. I think cats are gross.
Oh, that's so
I
mean.
know that they can pee and poop in a litter box, but cleaning that litter box is not my thing. If they're outside, I actually like cats because they have a purpose in the house. If they would catch mice, yes, that's a purpose. But they're not my favorite animal specifically to have in the house. I'm a dog person. All the way.
I already knew the answer to this, so.
Yeah. You just wanted me to tell people that I don't like cats.
Yeah.
Good job. What was the hardest thing for you about leaving North Dakota?
Hardest thing. Leaving the community. I think all those connections that you made while being there, all of the friends, the helpful people around you. I think that's a big part of what we miss. I mean, yes, we make connections and friends here, but for Eric, I mean, it was all of his, he lived there.
Up there.
He did. I mean, he moved away to Florida for a little bit, but he came back and he went to Grand Forks. But I mean, like, he knew all of these people and now we just left them. Like, that was, I think the hardest thing was leaving all those people behind and all those connections that you had. I mean, hopefully we still can keep up with people, but you know how it goes with life. And I think that probably was one of the hardest things. And leaving all of the work, sweat, tears, all of that put into the land. I think that was a big, hard thing for us to do also. I mean, starting over is not easy.
No, it's not. I agree with what you said. I can feel that deeply.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up this episode of the Farmstead Revival, The Tale of Two Sisters. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, make sure that you send them to us. You can find us over on Instagram. We are the Farmstead Revival over there. You can also go to my website. We don't have a website for this podcast because we're not a big deal.
No.
It's thehavenfarmstead.com. You can send us a message there. If you have a topic that you would like us to cover or questions that you would like us to answer, go ahead and send us a message in either of those two places and we'd be happy to do it. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Piggy, Piggy.